The gavel slammed twice. Order in the court. Judge Clarence Thomas sat high behind the mahogany bench, face unreadable, voice as cold as the marble pillars behind him. Representative Jasmine Crockett, he said without hesitation, you've defied this court's orders. Repeatedly. This body is authorized to fine you $500 million. A hush dropped so fast the reporters in the back stopped typing. $500 million. Even the attorneys looked at each other, not in shock but disbelief. The number wasn't just excessive. It was symbolic, designed to break her, not punish her. Jasmine sat perfectly still. No flinch, no sight, no reaction. She slowly stood, eyes locked on the man who had just tried to end her career with the bang of a gavel. Are you finished? The court buzzed. Someone gasped. Thomas leaned forward. Excuse me, I said. Are you finished, sir? 'Cause I am. She reached into her blazer and pulled out a single folder. Slim, unassuming, yellow-tabbed, one copy. She walked it to the clerk, handed it off with zero urgency, like she was returning a library book. Please enter that into the record. The clerk blinked. What is this? Facts, she said. Sworn depositions, tax records, internal emails, all dated. But Judge Thomas narrowed his eyes. Miss Crockett, Congresswoman, she corrected. Respectfully. And those documents show you have financial interests in 3 of the 4 private entities that lobbied for this fine to be imposed. The room shook literally. One reporter dropped a tablet. A man in the gallery stood up, then sat right back down like gravity had slapped him. Thomas pouted. That's absurd. It's math. Simple connections. You should have recused yourself from this case, but you didn't. And now we know why. His hand clenched around the gavel. This is a smear tactic. You are trying to deflect from the charges against you. No, she said. I'm showing this room what power looks like when it hides behind robes and silence. Gasps now turned into murmurs. He kept going. The public wasn't supposed to know that 3 months ago you dined with senior executives from Will Craftoft Holdings. That 2 weeks later a sealed memo circulated recommending sanctions specifically targeting me, and that the language used in that memo matches your written opinion. Thomas slammed the gavel. Silence. The silence is over. She said you abused this courtroom. You turned it into a weapon. But you forgot something I don't scare easy. One of the court officers stepped forward. Another judge on the bench whispered something. Thomas shook his head. This court will recess. No, this court will answer. She turned facing the gallery. If any of you in this room have felt what it's like to be told, shut up and accept it, then now's the time to pay attention. Because this isn't about me. It's about what happens when someone refuses to bow to people who think they're untouchable. The gallery was no longer quiet. The murmurs turned to murmurs of support. A man stood. Then a woman. A row of observers rose without saying a word. Jasmine turned back to the bench. You want to fine me $500 million to teach me a lesson? Here's my lesson. Never walk into a room where the rules are written to silence you. Rewrite the rules. Thomas tried to speak, but the clerk stood up. The same clerk who had taken her file. Your Honor, I've reviewed the documents. Thomas stared. The clerk looked visibly shaken. They appear legitimate, detailed. These allegations, they can't be ignored. Another judge leaned over. Third picked up the phone on the bench. Thomas's face cracked for the first time. This court will recess for 5 minutes. He tried to leave, but Jasmine spoke again. Before you go, one more thing. He froze. That file, it's already been sent to the Ethics Committee, 3 federal investigative bodies, and every major news outlet. The door behind the bench clicked open. Thomas didn't move. You thought I came here to defend myself, she said. But I came here to defend the people you've tried to silence with your position. I came here for every voice you tried to drown with your power. He turned to leave. The gallery was now buzzing, and not with scandal, with clarity. For the first time in that courtroom, the robes weren't the loudest thing in the room. The truth was, Jasmine sat back down, calm, composed. Another official stepped up behind the bench and whispered to the remaining justices. They whispered back. One leaned forward. Representative Crockett, we will reconvene in 15 minutes after reviewing the material. She nodded. Thomas didn't come back. The camera flashes outside the courthouse were blinding. By the time the 15-minute recess ended, the building was surrounded. Reporters, protesters, lost students with phones out. Even a few members of Congress had shown up, quietly stepping through the side entrance not to speak, just to watch. Inside, Jasmine Crockett stood by a window on the second floor. She wasn't pacing. She was sipping water, one hand in her blazer pocket, watching the crowd gather like a storm. How many cameras out there now? Her staffer whispered. Doesn't matter, she replied. This isn't about the lens, it's about the record. Back in the courtroom, two judges returned to the bench. Clarence Thomas did not. The seat with his nameplate sat empty, gavel untouched. A different judge, senior and visibly uncomfortable, tapped the mic. We're reconvening. The court recognizes that new material has been introduced into the record by Representative Jasmine Crockett. This court has reviewed that evidence. And he paused. We have questions. You could feel it in the room. Not chaos, not panic, but the shift. Suddenly, Jasmine Crockett wasn't the one on trial anymore. The air in the room leaned toward her. Prosecutor spoke next reluctantly. Given the contents of the material, which appear to indicate a significant conflict of interest by Judge Clarence Thomas, we recommend this court suspend enforcement of the financial penalty until an independent review is completed. Gasps again, but not Jasmine. She nodded once like she'd already factored this timeline in. Thank you, Your Honor, she said calmly. I trust the process when it's clean. The prosecutor tried to regain footing. That doesn't mean the allegations against you. She cut in. The allegations against me were drafted using language provided by lobbying firms linked to entities Judge Thomas has investments in. That's not an allegation. That's a chain of custody. One of the junior judges leaned toward the mic. Would you be willing to provide full digital access to the raw data already sent? You'll find a secure link in the court's inbox. There was a beat of silence. Then the clerk, the same one from earlier, stepped forward again. Have accessed the link. All materials check out. Timestamps are verified. She sat down again, but Jasmine remained standing. Let the record show I didn't come here for pity. I came here because power unchecked becomes infection. You don't clean infection by whispering about it. You expose it to light. There it was again. The shift in posture from the gallery. Not applause, not outbursts, just focus. The court paused. The judge looked down, clearly weighing every syllable. The court will now move to suspend the prior ruling in full, pending outcome of this investigation. And then it happened. The doors opened, cameras clicked. Clarence Thomas re-entered, but something had changed. He didn't go to his seat. He walked straight to the counsel table. No robe, just a dark suit, shoulders tense. The judge looked confused. Justice Thomas, this court is already in session. I'm aware, he said. He turned to Jasmine. For the first time, the nation saw the two standing level eye to eye. No elevation, no echo chamber. This is a misunderstanding, he said. She didn't blink. It's a system, she said. And it's not built for people like me to fight back, but I fought. He opened his mouth, then closed it. You think this is going to help your reputation? He said softer. You just declared war on a sitting justice. She stepped forward. No, I reminded a justice that power is rented and the people are the landlords. The gallery stood again, not coordinated, just aligned, as if they all understood that something bigger than law was happening, something like justice. Thomas turned to leave again. This time no one stopped him. He walked past the reporters, past the court officers, past the lens that once loved him. Jasmine sat down. No celebration, no grin, just breath. The judge tapped the mic once more. The court will enter temporary dismissal of the $500 million penalty pending full audit of judicial conflict. She nodded, understood. One of the cameras zoomed in tight. Her fingers, calm and still, rested on the table. No tremble, no twitch because she hadn't come for the show. She came for the shift. Outside, the crowd had grown to hundreds. Chants weren't loud. They were unified. Power truth people. Power truth people. And Jasmine walked out through the main doors, not escorted, not protected, but followed, not by bodyguards, by a movement. CNN ran it first, breaking banner. Full screen clip. #Crockett files. By the time MSNBC picked it up, the file Jasmine handed the court was already on a public server, anonymously uploaded, but digitally traced back to a secure congressional domain. Then it spread like wildfire. Cable, Twitter, Threads, YouTube, Telegram, the headlines weren't cautious anymore. Did Justice Thomas break recusal laws? The $500 million fine that backfired. Crockett versus the court, and she's winning. Jasmine hadn't tweeted a word. Her staff hadn't scheduled interviews, but the press came anyway. A wall of microphones waited outside her office by 900 a.m. sharp. She walked past them with the same calm she had in court. No umbrella, no sunglasses, no entourage, just her bag, her phone, and one line to the nearest reporter. Let the process finish before you start building documentaries. Then she walked in and shut the door. Across town it was chaos. The Supreme Court's press office was in overdrive. Clerks were scrambling to review old filings. PR teams were issuing blanket no comments. A leaked memo revealed internal panic. We underestimated her completely. This wasn't defense. This was strategy. Justice Thomas, meanwhile, was unreachable. Sources said he had cancelled appearances, refused all calls, and gone silent even within chambers. A meeting request from the Chief Justice was reportedly left unanswered. The Ethics Committee, however, didn't wait. They issued a public letter. We are opening a formal inquiry into Justice Clarence Thomas regarding potential financial conflicts of interest and judicial misconduct. The Crockett materials will be central to this investigation. That line was echoed everywhere. The Crockett materials. Cable anchors whispered it like gospel. And in the White House press briefing, the press secretary, normally tight-lipped, didn't deny anything. We believe in accountability no matter where it leads. That afternoon, Jasmine walked into a closed-door hearing on infrastructure. She wasn't scheduled to speak, but when she entered, every head turned. One Republican aide muttered under his breath, "That's her. That's the one who took out Thomas." And Jasmine, without stopping, turned just slightly and said, "I didn't take him out. He walked into his own mess. I just brought the receipts." The room froze. Then she sat. Business resumed, but nothing was normal anymore. Not in Congress, not in the courts, not in public. Because across the country, Americans were tuning in and seeing something they rarely witnessed. A black woman standing in front of the highest legal authority in the nation and not backing down and winning. Cable panels now ran her entire courtroom exchange in slow motion, pausing on her lines, analyzing her tone. She didn't yell, she calculated. She didn't accuse, she documented. She didn't defend, she exposed. Even conservatives. Some of them were grudgingly impressed. One Fox News host opened their segment with, "You don't have to like her politics, but you better respect the way she played this." Thomas's allies were splintering. One senior legal advisor tweeted, then deleted, "We warned him. That fine was never going to stick." But the damage was done. Memes exploded. Side-by-side clips of Thomas pounding a gavel next to Jasmine calmly passing a file. Caption, "Noise versus proof." A viral TikTok used courtroom audio over footage of chess moves, ending with Jasmine sliding her queen across the board. Views 12.8 million and climbing. But Jasmine's still not celebrating. Back in her office, she told her staff, "We don't dance on wreckage. We push forward." "What about interviews?" someone asked later. She said the story is still unfolding because she knew this wasn't just about Thomas. This was about precedent. A sitting congresswoman had just exposed a Supreme Court justice and did it in real time in public without flinching. Now came the hard part, proving the court wasn't above the system it was built to protect. The next morning, a new letter dropped from the House Judiciary Committee. They were launching their own investigation, not into Jasmine, into the financial ties between judicial rulings and private entities. They called it the Crockett Inquiry. 3 words that made Thomas's defenders go silent. And Jasmine, she stepped up to the podium, her first press appearance since court. "I didn't pick this fight, but I finished it. Because when you sit in power and punish people for standing in truth, you stop being a judge and start becoming a threat." The crowd roared. The video hit 4 million views in 3 hours. And behind the scenes in quiet halls of the court, Justice Clarence Thomas made a call to his private legal counsel. Because for the first time in his career, he wasn't behind the bench. He was under it. The subpoena hit before sunrise. Stamped, sealed, and hand-delivered to the offices of 3 Judicial Oversight Board members, 4 lobby groups, and 1 private financial firm registered in the Caymans. The title, Federal Judiciary Inquiry, Phase 1. Thomas hadn't been named yet, but everyone knew, especially the people closest to him. That morning, 2 longtime aides cleared their desks. One in turn left behind a note. He stopped listening to the law a long time ago. Inside Jasmine's office, there was no celebration, just a stack of printed messages, all flagged urgent. Ethics lawyers, anonymous whistleblowers, retired clerks, all saying the same thing. It's not just him. Check the rulings from 2020. Follow the money through federal bonds. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, hands steepled. "They're not sending this because they trust me," she said. "They're sending this because I proved I'm not afraid to open the door." "You want to go through with it?" her chief of staff asked. "No, I want to blow it off the hinges." But with that power came risk. That afternoon, a brown envelope landed in her secure inbox. Unmarked, encrypted single PDF attachment. Subject line, Private Mediation Proposal, Confidential. Inside was an offer. "If you publicly withdraw your request for Thomas's financial records to be unsealed, our legal affiliates will recommend full dismissal of the fine. Additionally, a philanthropic contribution of $10 million will be directed toward initiatives in your district." Jasmine read it once, then again, then forwarded it to the Office of Congressional Ethics. No comment, no post, no leak, just protocol. But that silence sent a louder message than any viral soundbite. Because within hours, the same law firm that sent the message denied involvement, then deleted their site's donor disclosure tab, then went offline completely. Back in court, the walls were cracking. A new judge was temporarily assigned to the bench while the Thomas inquiry proceeded. They ordered a preliminary freeze on any financial enforcement actions tied to Crockett's case, and then asked for sworn affidavit from the original plaintiffs. Only one responded and he flipped. A former board member of the lobbying group that pushed for Jasmine's fine submitted a statement under penalty of perjury. "We were told Crockett was a threat to the status quo. That her voice had to be neutralized before the next budget session. The memo came from higher. Didn't name names, but it was enough." The DOJ issued its first formal letter of interest in the case. And with that, the temperature changed. Suddenly, senators who had stayed quiet were tweeting vague statements about judicial integrity. Donors started freezing contribution to anyone linked to Thomas's past rulings. And for the first time, a Supreme Court ruling was being questioned in real time, not by pundits, but by sitting legislators. Meanwhile, Jasmine walked into a university auditorium filled with 700 students and said one thing: "Power protects itself." Until someone walks in and says, "Not today. That's what I did, and I'm not done." She wasn't bluffing. 2 days later, she filed a formal request to subpoena sealed communication logs between Thomas and 3 private sector executives known to have ties to energy deregulation cases. Her opponents in Congress screamed foul. This is a vendetta. She's attacking the judiciary. But the public wasn't buying it. Polls showed her approval skyrocketing in every major metro area. Even independents were shifting. A new poll showed 72% of voters believed Crockett had exposed something rotten in the judicial system. And yet the pressure grew. That night, someone left an envelope outside her home. No name, no address. Just 5 words written on a torn napkin. "Keep going. I got you." Inside was a flash drive. Encrypted. When decrypted, It showed a timeline, dates, financial transfers, travel logs connecting Thomas to a luxury real estate developer whose company had just won a disputed zoning case. 63 Thomas had written the opinion. The dots weren't just connecting now. They were drawing a target, and Jasmine Crockett wasn't running. She scheduled a press conference, just 10 minutes. No cue and no stagecraft. She walked up to the mic in a navy suit, pulled out the napkin and held it up. "I didn't come for the court," she said. "Came for clarity. And every time they try to drown us in numbers, we'll come back with names. This isn't a headline. This is a cleanup. I'm not asking the system to fix itself anymore. I'm telling it your time's up." By the time she left the podium, Twitter had exploded. Napkin note: Crockett cleanup. Your time is up. Cable news anchors abandoned their scripts. One pundit finally admitted, "We thought she was just going to defend herself. We didn't know. She was building a case for something much bigger." And back in chambers, Clarence Thomas was told point blank, "You may want to consider early retirement before this becomes something permanent." The statement came at 6:00 a.m. Typed in classic serif font, posted to the official website of the Supreme Court. No cameras, no press conference, just this. Justice Clarence Thomas acknowledges the growing public concern surrounding the financial allegations connected to past judicial decisions. He maintains his innocence and asserts that Representative Jasmine Crockett has acted with political intent. However, in the interest of preserving public faith in the court, he will temporarily step back from all active rulings until the Ethics Committee concludes its review. It didn't say resign. It didn't say guilty, but it said one thing louder than anything else. He blinked. For the first time in over 30 years on the bench, Clarence Thomas had taken a step back. And it wasn't voluntary. It was tactical retreat, damage control. And the media wasn't buying the phrasing. Temporarily, CNN asked. "Why now?" MSNBC demanded. "Because Crockett put his back against the wall," HuffPost wrote. By noon, congressional hearings were announced. Not just judicial reform, a full inquiry titled Accountability in the Highest Court, Financial Ethics and Judicial Power. Jasmine Crockett was listed as a lead witness. One senator tried to object, said she was too emotionally involved, but a reply from a senior colleague shut it down. "She's not emotional. She's effective." Inside Jasmine's office, the energy had shifted. It wasn't about defending anymore. It was about executing. "What do you want to lead with?" her chief counsel asked. "Pattern," she said. "You mean the donations?" "No," she said, "the disregard show how long they've been betting on silence. Because this wasn't just about one fine or even one judge. It was about everything beneath it. The lobbying groups, the donors hiding behind shelf firms, the luxury vacations masked as speaking engagements, all of it. This was systemic." So Jasmine prepared. No stylists, no media consultants, just receipts and fire. The night before the hearing, an editor at The Atlantic posted this. "We are watching a shift in political gravity. Jasmine Crockett is not dismantling Clarence Thomas. She's dismantling the illusion of invincibility." And the numbers proved it. Polls showed 83% of Americans believed Supreme Court justices should be held to financial transparency laws. Jasmine's name trended in over 11 states. Republicans were split. Some tried to tie her to cancel culture. Others quietly reached out. One anonymous aide leaked a text. "We should have backed off. Now she's in full control." And she was. Because the morning of the hearing, she walked into Congress wearing a black suit, carrying a single manila folder, and said to the press, "This isn't about left or right. It's about who's above the line and who thinks they're above the law inside the chamber." The gallery was packed. 5 former federal judges, 2 whistleblowers, 6 reporters from foreign outlets, and 1 silent row of justices seated behind tinted glass. The first question came from the committee chair. "Congresswoman Crockett, when did you first realize this was bigger than the fine?" She looked straight ahead. "The moment they issued the number $500 million, that's not punishment. That's intimidation." "And your response?" "Exposure." They threw a gavel. I held up a mirror. Laughter from the crowd. Not mockery, just awe. The next senator tried to rattle her. Isn't it true you benefited politically from the chaos this caused? She didn't blink. I didn't create the chaos. I revealed it. Do you think this will hurt the court's credibility? It's already hurt. The question is, will we disinfect it or keep letting it rot? Gasps again. Some scribbled notes. A Republican senator cleared his throat. Representative, you've been accused of orchestrating a personal vendetta. No, she said, I orchestrated a public audit, and if Justice Thomas is cleared, she leaned forward, then he should return. But until then, we treat him the same way we treat anyone else under investigation. Because if he's not immune to evidence, then no one should be immune to accountability. By the time she finished her testimony, 2 new subpoenas had been requested. Jasmine stepped out of the hearing and into the blinding sun, where someone in the crowd shouted, "They're scared of you." She turned briefly and replied without stopping, "They should be scared of what silence costs. I just refused the bill." It leaked at 2:34 a.m. A grainy muffled audio file 47 seconds long posted anonymously to an encrypted platform, then reshared on Reddit, Twitter signal groups, and within 20 minutes picked up by Politico. The caption read, Clarence Thomas Private Strategy Meeting June. The voice was unmistakable. She thinks this is about her. Let her run wild. We'll drown her in noise before anyone hears the facts. Another voice interjected. And the fine is bait. Hit her hard, make her look greedy, then watch her cave. The audio ended with low laughter. Then silence and the internet exploded. Misapes. The bait plan. Crockett was right. Within the hour, it was verified by 2 audio forensics labs. Confirmed. Voice print matched Thomas. No signs of editing. No metadata tampering. Cable news dropped everything. Live anchors went off script. You're telling me this wasn't even about law. This was a trap. A narrative trap. And she didn't fall for it. She turned the whole thing around. By morning, the court's official press office released a statement. Justice Thomas disputes the context of the leaked audio. He asserts the clip is misleading and taken out of full strategic conversation not related to any specific case. But no one was buying it. Not after 5 weeks of subpoenas, resignations, and now this. The Ethics Committee launched an emergency session. Judicial Watch called for full release of all internal court communications over the past 6 months. And Congress, they issued a letter. If the tape is authentic, then the court knowingly deployed punitive measures against a sitting lawmaker to undermine federal transparency legislation. The backlash wasn't just legal now. It was historic. Meanwhile, Jasmine sat in her office scrolling through the headlines. Her comms director leaned in. They're all asking for comment. CNN, BBC, The Times, everybody. Let them wait, she said. She wasn't being cocky. She was being careful because what no one knew was that she already had the full tape. Not 47 seconds, the whole thing. 61 minutes, clearer audio, multiple voices, even a date and location. Drop it, her chief of staff asked. Not yet, she said. Let them double down on the lie, then we detonate. Across town, damage control had turned into full-scale panic. Several judges held a private conference call. One source leaked the minutes. She has the country. We have the robes. And right now, the robes aren't winning. In the next news cycle, 3 more connections surfaced. Thomas's wife had purchased stock in a company that lobbied against Crockett's last transparency bill. A PAC that supported the fine received foreign transfers disguised as donations. A court memo from 6 months ago referenced Crockett's escalating voice as a liability to federal balance. And then Jasmine moved. She walked into a press room packed tighter than ever. No teleprompter, no speech, just one statement, the tape. You've heard the teaser. I have the full episode. And guess what? There are more than 2 voices. Gasps, clicks, a pause. This wasn't just about targeting me. This was about setting a precedent that if you speak too loudly, they'll find you into silence. I won't drop the rest of the audio. Not yet. I'm giving them 48 hours to tell the truth. Not to me, to the people. Because if they don't, I will. Then she walked off. Didn't take a single question. Didn't need to. The moment trended globally. The full tape. 48-hour ultimatum. Crockett countdown. Justice Thomas released a second statement. Visibly shaken. The congressman's claims are exaggerated. Any further leaks will be treated as doctored and retaliatory. That was a mistake because now the press didn't just want the full tape. They demanded it. And within 12 hours, calls for his resignation came from inside the court itself. An anonymous justice told The Guardian, "He's compromised. He's endangering the bench with every day he stays quiet." Meanwhile, Jasmine's approval rating hit 78% nationally, a record. Petitions surged for her to lead a new congressional task force on judicial ethics. And inside her war room, Jasmine paced, not nervous, just precise. "They thought this was chess," she said, "but it was poker. We called their bluff." "No," she said, staring at the wall. "We made them show their hand, and now they're folding." Timer hit 0. 48 hours, no retraction, no confession, no apology. Jasmine Crockett didn't blink. At exactly 9 a.m., her office uploaded the full recording. 61 minutes high definition. 3 voices. 1. Justice Clarence Thomas. 2. A senior strategist from a federal-aligned policy group. 3. A well-known D.C. legal lobbyist with ties to multiple court-facing cases. The transcript wasn't just damning. It was tactical. This fine isn't about guilt. It's about making her radioactive. Public perception. Discredit her before budget season. She'll scream. Let her. The media cycle forgets in 2 days. And then Thomas again. We break her spirit before she builds a following. She's too clean to smear. So we weaponize process. Make her fight shadows. The last 30 seconds were the worst. Even if she flips it, we stall. Delay means she burns political capital. She wins, but she's exhausted. But Jasmine wasn't exhausted. She was on fire. The moment the file dropped, 5 congressional leaders held an emergency press conference. "This is judicial sabotage," one declared. "A betrayal of public trust," another followed. "We will move to suspend Justice Clarence Thomas pending full criminal review." It was historic. Never before had a sitting justice faced such unified bipartisan condemnation. CNN cut live to a stunned anchor. Folks were witnessing the collapse of a wall many believed was untouchable. Across the nation, people tuned in. TikTokers played the recording over clips of courtroom justice scenes. Hashtags topped global charts. Crockett tapes, Thomas down, Justice on trial, and Jasmine. She wasn't giving interviews. She wasn't doing victory laps. She was in meetings briefing legal scholars, coordinating with civil rights organizations, preparing legislation to finally force financial disclosures from every Supreme Court justice moving forward. Behind the scenes, the court was in free fall. 2 clerks resigned. 3 justices reportedly held a private vote of no confidence. The Chief Justice released a statement. "We are deeply troubled by the recent revelations. The court cannot fulfill its duty when one of its members appears to have violated core ethical standards." And inside Thomas's own circle, cracks widened. A top advisor stepped down. His former law clerks issued a joint letter condemning the behavior. Donors began publicly withdrawing support from legal foundations tied to his name. That night, Jasmine's team received a quiet message encrypted from a number tied to a high-ranking federal judge. "You've done what decades of policy and pressure failed to do. The robes have always protected themselves until now." The next morning, a House Oversight Committee scheduled a vote. Title: Temporary Suspension of Judicial Authority, Ethics Breach Response Act. Unofficially, everyone called it the Crockett Clause. And Jasmine was asked to speak first. She wore navy. No papers, no script. She walked to the mic, waited for the silence. "They tried to find me into silence. They failed. They tried to drown me in doubt. Swam. Now we speak not just for the people they tried to shut up, but for every person who watched the rules only apply to the powerful. Power without accountability is not order. Suppression. And this vote, this moment, it's not about me. It's about what happens the next time someone thinks they can get away with using the law like a weapon. The gallery erupted. No screams, just standing. One by one, quietly, she stepped back. One member whispered, "That woman rewrote the playbook." The vote 387 to 48. Justice Clarence Thomas suspended indefinitely pending criminal review. Jasmine walked out without a smile. Just a statement. "We're not done. The system isn't clean yet. But we've shown it can bleed." 3 days after the vote, Clarence Thomas disappeared from the court. No press, no ceremony, no in honor of statements, just an unmarked black car, a quiet exit, and a sealed envelope handed to the Chief Justice. Inside a single line, "I request immediate administrative leave, indefinite duration." For the first time in history, a sitting Supreme Court justice was effectively removed. Not by legal force, not by resignation, but by public pressure. And at the center of that gravity, Jasmine Crockett. She didn't host a victory tour. Didn't gloat on late-night shows. She turned off every press request, even the ones offering 7-figure exclusives. Instead, she walked into a closed-door ethics session with 6 bipartisan members of Congress, 3 federal judges, and 2 whistleblowers from the very lobbying firm that had once backed Thomas. She laid out what came next. This doesn't end with one justice. This ends when the system that let him operate this way is dismantled quietly, legally, permanently. The mood was serious, but also clear because no one doubted her anymore. The reforms that followed were fast and surgical. A binding federal law requiring all federal judges, including SCOTUS, to disclose gifts and assets quarterly. A new third-party oversight panel with subpoena power. A digital public ledger showing financial rulings and their related entities in real time. They called it the Judicial Transparency Package. The public called it Crockett's Law, but Jasmine called it overdue. In the days that followed, something else shifted the American conversation. Cable anchors began talking about judicial power with urgency, not reverence. Lost students in universities across the country updated their dissertations. Civics' classrooms turned her testimony into case studies and memes unrelenting. A picture of Jasmine holding up a folder next to a silent Thomas caption. She brought proof, he brought problems. Merchandise companies started printing mugs. $500 million fine. Zero fear. TikToks showed reenactments of the courtroom with cinematic music, ending on Jasmine's quote, "I didn't come for revenge. Came for receipts." But while social media crowned her a hero, Jasmine stayed low. She returned to her district, met with organizers, held town halls in churches and community centers. At one, a young woman stood up and asked, "How did you not break?" Jasmine smiled, leaned forward. "I did, but only in private. And then I built something stronger out of the pieces." And you could hear it in the silence of the room. The moment the crowd realized this wasn't just about justice, it was about survival and legacy. That same week, the Chief Justice gave a rare public statement. The Supreme Court has historically been immune from the pressures of transparency. That era, as of today, is over. Behind the scenes, more heads rolled. 2 clerks resigned. 3 longtime lobbyists were subpoenaed. One major law firm, which had tried to bribe Jasmine earlier in the saga, was formally banned from federal contract work for a decade. The DOJ opened new cases. Clarence Thomas was referred to the FBI. But Jasmine, she released a 10-word statement. Let the law do what they never expected it to. She didn't need a headline because the world already knew who rewrote the rules. Months later, she was honored at the National Archives. Not with a trophy, but with a framed printout of the original $500 million penalty. It now hangs in a private exhibit titled Silenced. Not this time. Visitors see the fine, then a clip of her testimony, then a timeline of every reform that followed, and next to it, a small plaque. This woman was handed the heaviest fine in congressional history. She turned it into the most impactful judicial reform since Watergate. She didn't just fight back, she rebuilt the battlefield. And still Jasmine said very little. In her final floor speech of the term, She looked across the chamber and delivered one line that landed like thunder. If they come for you with power, answer with proof. That's what I did. And that was it. No mic drop. No ego, just truth. Served ice gold. Because that's what she had become. Not a politician, not a firebrand. A reminder that even the highest court in the land still lives under the Constitution. And when it forgets, Jasmine Crockett is right there to remind. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.